Now to him who is able to do far more abundantly beyond all that we ask or think, according to the power that works within us. Ephesians 3:20.
We have felt the hand of the Lord in our lives at different areas, at different times, off and on, throughout our marriage. Probably the biggest area and the biggest time, though, that we felt like the Lord went above and beyond was with our oldest son.
So my son's senior year of high school, we were forced to make a very difficult decision to send him away to a boarding school when all of our own efforts didn't work in getting him back on track into the life that we knew God wanted him to have. Just rebellion, drugs, alcohol, partying had taken over.
And so we sent him to a Christian boarding school up in Northern California and had him picked up in the middle of the night, unexpected to him. The most painful time that Tiff and I probably have ever gone through. And the Lord met us and was with us through that whole transition time.
We had hopes that the school was something that was going to change him, bring him to his senses, but that's not what happened. About 3 weeks after our son turned 18 years old, he decided to make his first adult decision and walked off the mountain. And because he was 18, no one could stop him. I got the phone call that he was gone. And I remember my heart sunk because I knew that that meant we couldn't bring him home. He knew if he left the school that he would be on his own without our financial assistance, a place to stay, nothing. He was on his own and he was well aware of that. A truck driver picked him up when he was hitchhiking and gave him $100 because he thought he was a nice kid. And so when our son started to call to get people to come pick him up 10 hours away, which of course friends were not going to do that, somebody suggested that he buy a bus ticket. And the bus ticket was exactly $100. And so he arrived back in Placentia 10 hours away safely, and I was able to go to sleep that night without worrying about him.
So at that point he came back into the community, but we had set boundaries and we basically said, hey Austin, if you make that decision, unfortunately, you're on your own. And at that point, it went from the couch on the neighbor's house across the street to other friends in the community to Portland, Oregon, to Austin, Texas, where he got into some things that he probably wishes he didn't get involved with. And then we brought him home for Christmas one year and basically said, look, you've got a return flight. You haven't lived up to the standards. You're not going to be able to stay, but we'd love to have you home for Christmas. And we brought him home and he blew through all of his Christmas money with his friends. He went out, again, wasn't ready to make a life change. And unfortunately the Sunday came and I said, look, we got to take you back to the airport. He says he's not going. Next thing I know, he has a friend picking him up in a pickup truck and he disappeared back into the community.
I realized there was nothing that we could do to change him. We had given him every chance, every opportunity, every tool. And so now was a real test of our faith. The day that our prodigal son came to his senses, it was one of the biggest rainstorms of 2016. His accommodations of where he was going to stay fell through. His cell phone was disconnected. He ran out of money. He went out to dinner with his friends the night before and tried to ask a friend for some French fries, and the friend said no. That's when he came to his senses and said, my family would have fed me. So that day he showed up at my office. We talked with him. He was distraught. I gave him a list of homeless shelters because we weren't going to take him in. He had expressed he still wanted to be able to do things his way. But by the end of the day, he realized with no food, no place to go, that he needed the Lord. He literally threw up his hands and said, I give up. I can't do this anymore. I need my family. I need the Lord. This life leads to nothing. I trusted God. And we took him, his grandparents took him in, and he started an addiction program the next day.
It was this period with my oldest son where I had to lean into the Lord like never before. And emotionally, spiritually, the Lord met me and took me beyond what I could have ever imagined. The whole story of a prodigal, you never understand it until you've lived it. And the joy of his father as he saw his son coming down the road I understand the joy. I understand the joy now. And so even today, it kind of gets me choked up. It's a powerful story. And until you've actually lived that story, it doesn't really come to life. But thank the Lord, my prodigal's back. He's been sober for 3 years. He's doing above and beyond what we could have ever expected in his life. And it's been a huge blessing to us.